Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. Well, it's a very rainy Saturday here. It hasn't stopped raining since early this morning. So I hope your weather is better than mine. Oh, it's gloomy, chilly, rainy in Wisconsin. Oh, dear. Dear. All right. I'm sorry I can't bring much sunshine because there ain't any to give. Not any to give here. All right. So today we are talking about all of the new information that is come out from the RCMP. Very surprising, but very, very welcomed. It is the one thing I've been saying they should have done this far sooner. It doesn't necessarily matter that they haven't, except that Lilly and Jack have remained missing. But anyway, the RCMP are bringing in 2 cadaver dogs from British Columbia, from all the ways over on the west. I don't know why they've got to go all the ways to British Columbia to get 2 cadaver dogs. It does seem to be that Canada is lacking in cadaver dogs. So make of that what you will. But there's a bunch of stuff, bunch of news articles. One of them has got a little interview with Daniel. We're going to play them all the ones I could find anyway. So we've got CTV, CBC, and Global News have done various pieces. Now, the RCMP did say that they were going to get their police service team to do a media briefing to talk about cadaver dogs, to explain what the cadaver dogs will be doing. And that happened yesterday. That was done yesterday. And we've got some little clips in the news pieces from that media briefing. So I think it was like a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams or something meeting. So it wasn't like a press conference. It was just a briefing for credentialed media. And they've got some clips, but I want one channel somewhere to release the whole thing, because it was half an hour apparently. Have I seen all the new Delphi docs from the investigation out yesterday? No, I haven't. Interesting. I shall go and check those out. Where are they available? Just like Indiana website, court thing. But yeah, I'll go and hunt them down after. So we've got a bunch to go through. Also, Janie rang into the DT show last night. So I'm going to play a little clip from that as well. Very interesting. So, all right, I'm going to say a couple of hellos. Just give people a little bit of a chance to come in here. Oh, and the interview with Daniel, he said he knows for a fact that the cadaver dogs won't find Lilly and Jack. Make of that what you will. All right. Hello, Holly. Unless they have a specific area to begin searches, I suppose they will grid search. They've said that they're going to do targeted areas that are the most likely places where Lilly and Jack might have died. Hello, Down Under with Love. We got Dawn, Jackie, Mel. We got who else have we got? We got Barbie, Mimi. We got, trying to find new people. Professor in mathematics and science, Jackie, Linda. We got 2 Arctic Wolves, CW, shopping. Oh, you'd shopping. Oh no. That's worse than standing out with a puppy in the rain waiting for her to wee. And then she doesn't wee because she's too distracted. And then she comes in and wees on the floor. Hello, Ashley. We got Tammy in the house. We got Dulcie. We got Akira. Blue Willow. All right, I'm going to stop. All right, so first things first. I got to share my screen here. And I'm going to start with, where's the most logical place to start? Probably here, I would think. All right, so I'm going to read this article. Just let me... Sorry, guys. I shut myself out. Did it share or not? It didn't share. It didn't even share. All right. Okay, we're good to go now. Let's make this big. Okay, we'll start here with the global news. And they've got a little piece here we're going to play in a second. So, Nova Scotia missing kids, cadaver dogs to be used as RCMP announce new searches. The thing that also pleased me, as well as the cadaver dogs, is that they're actually going out doing more searches. So, I don't know how long they are going to search for. I don't know how long these two dogs are going to be here either. Is my sound messed up or is this silent right now? I kicked myself out for like 30 seconds. So as long as the sound's okay now, we're good to go. Are they going today? No, they're not going to be searching this weekend. That's one thing they have said. They're not doing it this weekend. The dogs haven't arrived yet. The sound's good. All right. Good stuff. All right. So we'll play this first, couple of minutes, and then I'll read the article, and that kind of sets the scene then. So let me know that the sound's okay on the video. It'd be good.
Well, it speaks for me that it's another tool in their toolbox, so to speak.
This former major crimes investigator says he thinks police are on the right track. The RCMP announced Friday it's bringing in cadaver dogs in the search for Lilly and Jack Sullivan, which are used to look for human remains.
Well, when you call cadaver dogs in this late, it's for one reason is because they are most effective when they're looking for decomposition. Two, where are they looking for decomposition and why? What information do they have that takes them to that particular position?
Police won't share details on dates, times, or the locations of the upcoming searches. In a statement to Global News, an RCMP spokesperson said there is nothing definitive to support the children are dead, but previous searches have not yielded any results. RCMP say, quote, deploying the human remains detection teams at this point aligns with the investigative efforts to date. All scenarios are being considered. It's critical for investigators to remain open to all possibilities to ensure our investigation is fully comprehensive. Speaking to reporters on Friday, RCMP say these cadaver dogs can find decomposing bodies several feet in the ground, along with operating within water and with burnt remains.
We know it's going to take time. We wish it'd be faster, but we have to be patient.
The two children were first reported missing from their home in Lansdowne Station in Pictou County on May 2nd, prompting a large-scale search effort involving hundreds of volunteers. Police say more than 80 interviews, 800 tips, and thousands of video have been compiled throughout the investigation, along with polygraph tests and forensic examinations on items discovered in the search. This staff sergeant says the cadaver dog search will continue until every angle has been explored.
There's no real timeline to follow until you extinguish all possibilities.
Mitchell Bailey, Global News, Halifax.
All right, so a few things there. Oh, it's going to take me to the next one. I don't want it to. There's a few things in there, right? So the RCMP are now saying that they've got no reason to believe that the children are dead. However, if you followed it from like day one, on May the 7th at their press conference, so the children have been missing for 5 days at that point, they said they were scaling down the search because they got no reason to believe that the children were alive at that point. So which is it? The RCMP seems to switch up Lilly and Jack being alive or dead, depending on their mood, depending on what narrative they want to spin. Now they feel the need to bring in cadaver dogs. Now they're saying, oh, well, there's no reason to believe that the children are dead. We don't have any, any particular information that leads us to believe that the children are dead. Well, that's very different than what they were saying on May the 7th. So I understand that that was 4 months ago, and I understand that they've done a lot of investigations since then. But if they had no reason to believe that the children were dead on May 7th, why did they stop searching? Now, all right, they might want to explore other investigative leads, and that's perfectly fine, but say that. Don't give your excuse as, oh, well, we don't think the children are alive anymore, therefore we're going to turn down our search. Well, all right, at that point, continue searching, but at that point, bring in your cadaver dogs. Now, the guy, the retired person who spoke at the beginning of that piece, said that, the decomposition, it's good that they've kind of waited. Like he's intimating, it's good that they've waited because the decomposition will be stronger now. Well, that's not necessarily true. Because after 4 months, it might be harder to find 2 bodies that are going to be now very badly decomposed and most likely predated on by animals. So the body goes through a predictable series of events when it dies. And decomposition starts straight away. Like as soon as the cells are no longer receiving oxygen, then your brain's dead, then the cells start to break down straight away. But even dogs can't detect that very, very, very early process. So you get reliable 2 to 3 hours in. It depends on the environment. A lot of it depends on the temperature. Obviously, in hot temperatures outside, then decomposition is going to go faster than it would be in ice and snow, where decomp is severely restricted. Also in cold water, decomp is severely restricted. It's to do with the bacteria and stuff that's breaking it all down. So under normal circumstances, and remember, we've gone through the entire summer. Now, all right, I know that Nova Scotia isn't tropical, but we have gone through the summer months when there's going to be predatory animals feeding cubs and so on, and the warmer weather. Well, that decomposition process will have happened probably a month in. You're looking at a really good point where under normal temperatures, you're going to have quite a strong odor. But then the body starts to dry out. Like the bacteria does its thing. The internal organs basically liquefy, and you're left with the bones, the hair, not quite skeletal, depending on how scattered the remains have become. So actually, the RCMP have made life a little bit more difficult for themselves by waiting for 4 months. Now, that's assuming that Lilly and Jack died somewhere in the woods. If they were buried, well, obviously that then denotes a homicide, because you can't bury yourself, can you? So if you're found buried, unless it's like a natural rockfall or something like that, then understandable. But if you're, literally in a grave, in a shallow grave that has been dug, then that's automatically a homicide. And being underground obviously reduces the amount of predation from animals like coyotes, bears, etc. Birds, unless they dig them up. Like if the grave is very shallow, then a bear or a coyote will just dig them up, you know. But if they've been, you know, buried fairly deep, then a dog will be able to smell that decomp underground. But unless, like a coyote or a bear, who also have excellent sense, bears have got a better sense of smell than dogs have. It's just a little bit unfortunate that bears are really not that trainable. You know, I don't think anytime soon we're going to be seeing, you know, cadaver bears. So, you know, it's fortunate for dogs because dogs, you know, are still in a job, but bears have got an excellent sense of smell. And if a bear is really hungry, then yes, it will dig. Yes, it will. However, under normal circumstances, if bodies are buried, then they're going to remain buried. And if a cadaver dog does detect that, then clearly that's a homicide. Also, cadaver dogs can search water. Now, water, not all cadaver dogs are trained on water. Increasingly they are actually these days, but not all are trained on water. Now, with water, it's interesting because obviously it's moving all the time, and you literally have to be right over the top of the body to get an accurate alert. And then we've got dogs who are able to detect bones. Now, some cadaver dogs are trained just on the scent of decomp, which is cadaverine and putrescine. Those are the chemicals that they train on. Well, actually, cadaverine, I think it is, that they use to train on. And those dogs won't alert just on bones if the bones are dry. They might do, but some dogs are trained on bones, like specifically on bones. So decomp and bones. So you're looking at skeletal remains, right? Some dogs are even trained on cremains. Now, cremains are ashes. You know, when you've been cremated and you get the ashes back. Some dogs are trained on cremains. Now, that's a little bit more niche, because obviously that scent's very different. That's a little bit more niche. So when we say cadaver dogs, we're actually covering a bunch of different scents that dogs could have been trained on. And the type of training to train cadaver dogs, as I said, I don't know whether it was a video or a recent live stream. Basically, training a cadaver dog is like training an article detection dog. So, you know, dogs trained to find drugs or electronics or money or to detect cancer. That's all article detection. It's different than man trailing, right? So just to make that point. All right. So these dogs, I'll be interested to know what these dogs are trained on. Now, it does say in the news reports that they're trained, they can do underground, water and ashes. So are these dogs really highly trained, that they've cross-trained through decomp, bones and cremains? If so, then that's really interesting. Now, we wouldn't expect Lilly and Jack to have been cremated. So I think it's just basically the point that dogs can do that if they've been trained to do it. All right, let's go through this article. The search for two young siblings who disappeared on 4 months ago from their home in rural Nova Scotia is set to resume with a team of police cadaver dogs and their handlers. Lilly and Jack Sullivan, aged 6 and 4, were reported missing on May 2nd from their home in Lansdowne Station in Pictou County. The children's family have said the siblings wandered away that morning from their home, which is situated in a heavily wooded area. Well, actually, Janie doesn't believe that the kids are in the woods. She absolutely doesn't believe the kids are in the woods. She doesn't think that Jack would have walked into the woods on his own. Can they tell the difference between a decaying body versus an animal? Yes. Yes, they can. Every animal, because, you know, every animal, like, look, I'm a vegan, so I haven't tasted like animal flesh for a long time. I mean, I've been a vegetarian since I was 11, so I haven't eaten meat since I was 11, but you can tell the difference between pork and chicken, can't you? You can tell the difference between pork and beef, right? Because like the way that various animals build their proteins results in different combinations of scent, which you can detect when meat is cooked. So when an animal dies, then the scent is different to a dog. Pigs are the closest to humans. So sometimes, you know, a new dog, a newly trained dog, or sometimes they will alert on pig remains. What's more likely to throw them is human sewage, because when we produce urine and feces, that contains a very small amount of the chemicals that the human remains detection dogs are trained to find. Because in our waste, when we're alive, in our waste, we are actually getting rid of old cells and old, like, broken down proteins. So in very small amounts, we are releasing cadaverine, putrescine, and etc. in our waste. We'd die if we didn't. We'd basically become toxic if we didn't. Now, things like sewage pipes, like leaking sewage pipes, or sewage that's like flowing into rivers, that can confuse dogs. That can, because it smells like exactly the scent that they're trained to find. So they're more likely to become confused at things like that than they are various other animals, like if you bury a dog or something like that. All right, the children's family. All right, I've read that. This marks the first time the RCMP police dog service teams specifically trained in human remains detection will be used in this investigation, which I find absolutely insane. Insane. It's like my prayers have been answered, because I've been saying for ages, like video after video, please bring cadaver dogs. They need cadaver dogs. Finally, they've listened. I'm sure it's not my videos that has persuaded them, but it was obvious that that's what needed to be done. Past searches have used police dogs that are able to pick up human scent, or live scent. For the children's paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray, this news offers some hope. I want them home more than I want to know what happened. That can come afterwards. I need them found. I need to know. And Belinda has said that she's, I don't suppose coming to terms is the right word, but she believes that the children are no longer with us. So, you know, she believes that. The two handlers and their dogs will be arriving in Nova Scotia from Alberta and British Columbia. Human remains detection dogs are specific to human remains order, and that's completely different from live searching. Of course it is. Said Staff Sergeant Stephen Pike, Programme Manager of the RCMP Police Dog Service Training Centre, during a media availability on Friday. I wish they would release the whole thing. I want to listen to it. I don't see why they can't just, one of the news pieces can't just release the whole thing. What it comes down to is, because they clearly have recorded it, because we're seeing clips. We're seeing clips in their news pieces, so they clearly have recorded it. What it comes down to is you search the area of highest probability. So any investigation would have to direct you to, or point you into, areas of highest probability. Now, where would the highest probability be? Well, if I was one of the handlers that had been called in to do this job, the highest probability areas would be, I would want to go over the entire property that Lilly and Jack disappeared from, but I guess it would be the area around where the boot prints were found, because the RCMP investigation has found that they were the same size as Lilly's boots. So, yes, it could be a coincidence, but that's the obvious place that I would want to go to. And also where the blanket was found, which I'm still confused about, but we'll get to that. Okay. RCMP would not provide details on when the searches would take place or at which locations. Spokesperson Cindy Bayers said they were withholding this information in consideration of the investigation and officer safety. Strange way to word it, but okay. I understand that look, you're not going to release the areas you're going to search because you're going to have the media there. You're going to have a whole bunch of onlookers. You're going to have people disturbing the dogs. The dogs need to be able to actually work without distraction. So that's the reason why they're not giving the locations away. There's nothing definitive to support the children are deceased. No, but on May 7th, you said, your organisation, Cindy Bayers, said that you'd no reason to believe that they were still alive. Unbelievable. But other searches to date have not located them. Deploying the human remains detection teams at this point aligns with the investigative efforts to date. All scenarios are being considered. It's critical for investigators to remain open to all possibilities to ensure our investigation is fully comprehensive. So this was in an email. The investigation into Lilly and Jack's disappearance has included multiple searches by hundreds of volunteers and police from surrounding areas. Authorities scaled back the ground search 6 days after they went missing. It was actually 5 days. I guess you could say it was the 6th day because Lilly and Jack were reported missing on the morning of May the 2nd. So, they got some searching done that day. So I guess it would be day 6. Saying it was unlikely the children were still alive. Police have said there is no evidence of abduction and court documents indicate polygraph tests on the siblings' parents suggested truthful answers. We still don't know, and I would love to know what the questions were, because you can pass a polygraph if the questions that you're asked aren't aligned with what actually happened to the children. Investigators have also conducted forensic examinations on items such as pieces of pink blanket believed to belong to Lilly. So we don't know what those results are. If those results are back, we don't know what they are. To this date, we've received over 800 tips. We've done 80 interviews, over 1,000 tasks, and reviewed over 8,000 videos, said spokesperson Gwilym Trombley. Certainly, there's a lot of work in missing persons investigations, and this is the next step with our resources. We're looking at every resource that's available, and investigators are working very hard every day on this file. I hope that they don't just do like a day, like basically pay lip service to the cadaver dogs and say, oh, we didn't find them. We didn't find them, therefore, obviously the time that these dogs can spend in Nova Scotia is going to be limited. They're coming from the west. Why they got dogs coming all that way, I don't know. Maybe they're the best trained ones. Maybe they're the two top dogs. I don't know. But this is the problem with Canada, that they've got so few trained cadaver dogs in the RCMP. They've got very few that specialise in human remains detection, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. They've got 12. In my live stream the other day, I looked it up. The United States has got 5,000, an estimated 5,000 cadaver dogs, employed by various police services, compared to 12 in the entirety of Canada. That's nuts to me. I mean, look, I understand that policing is on a budget, but seriously, how long are they going to be able to pay for these 2 dogs and their handlers to be in Nova Scotia? Because not only do they have to pay for their travel there and back, they've got to, pay for their lodgings while they're here. So according to one of these articles, we only have 6 to 8 dogs. Well, it says 12, like on the RCMP bump, but maybe some dogs have retired now. Because, you know, dogs retire and they have to be replaced. We're looking at every resource that's available. Investigation working very hard, right? The RCMP Police Dog Service handlers said their dogs can detect remains buried several feet underground water and amongst ashes. Whether they can detect anything can depend on conditions and variables such as the rate of decomp, weather, and the presence of wild animals. A lot of it is environmentally based. For example, what was the person wearing? Where do they pass on? Is it in a fall? Is it during midsummer? All that will have an effect on the human body, said dog handler Sergeant Dave Whelan, who is part of the team heading to Nova Scotia. Now, midsummer, decomp's going to be faster. If it's really, really dry, actually, bodies can start to mummify if it's really dry. Is it in is it in the fall rather than a fall? Is it in the fall? Observers like retired police investigator Jim Hoskins said this new development indicates police know more than they can say. I don't know whether it does. I mean, it may do. It may do. And if they do have some kind of investigative lead, you know, and they've got reason to believe that the children are in a specific location and they want to test that theory, then bringing in the cadaver dogs, yeah, I get it. But from day one, there has been places where cadaver dogs were desperately needed. Desperately needed. You know, after a week of searching, bring in the cadaver dogs. Definitely bring them in within the first month. Because the quicker you can get the dogs there, the more likely it is that the bodies are going to be intact. And, you know, the autopsies are going to be able to give more information. When you get down to skeletal remains where, you know, bones have been scattered, then how are you going to find the cause of death? Unless there's something really obvious like a gunshot wound through a bone. All right, cool. You can see that in an autopsy of a skeleton. And you can tell what type of animal might have predated on it, but you can't tell how that person died. When it's usually when it's a skeletal, when it's skeletal remains, it's much more informative to find an intact body or an almost intact body. Now, obviously, if they did die in the woods, then animal predation could have happened very quickly. So you've always got that to consider. If they've been buried, though, then you've got a better chance. So of getting bodies that will actually give up some, you know, some information. And again, if they've been buried and it's clearly a man-made grave rather than something like a rock fall or something like that, then yeah, you've got a homicide investigation on your hands. But wouldn't it have been better to know that in a month 1 than now we're in month 5? Tranquilizers in bone marrow. Yeah, but bones dry out. And if animals have predated on the bones, then they crack the bones to eat the marrow. They want the marrow because it's like really nutritious. So bears, coyotes, wildcats, they break the bones to eat the marrow. So that's not necessarily true. Unless they've been buried and you've got a homicide investigation, and then yes, you're going to have bodies that are intact and more likely to be able to give up their cause of death. When you call cadaver dogs in this late, it's for one reason. It's because they are most effective when they are looking for decomposition. Yeah, but decomposition doesn't take 4 months to develop. You decomp in under, you know, summer conditions. Your decomp is extremely severe by month 4. You're probably looking at dried up bodies rather than actively decomposing bodies. And that's assuming there's been no animal predation. Where are they looking for a decomposition and why? What information do they have that takes them to that particular position? As for the timeline of the search, please say it's difficult to say. There's no real timeline to follow until you extinguish all possibilities, said Pike. Now, that would lead me and any sensible person to believe that they're just going to carry on searching, and they're going to carry on searching until they find them. But that can't be the case. That absolutely cannot be the case. Cannot be the case, because every service has a budget, so they can't have these two dogs from over in the west over in Nova Scotia indefinitely, unless they plan to bring in other dogs, like, you know, they've got these two for now, and then they're going to bring in maybe another two, and then another two, and then I don't know. All right, so this is the little interview with Daniel, who said they're not going to find them. Now, Daniel has been wanting cadaver dogs. He's been saying that he wants cadaver dogs. But now he's saying he knows they're not going to find them. Dogs aren't as good as they claim. Cadaver dogs are very good. You've got something like 94 to 95% accuracy of detection in cadaver dogs. As long as the dog's in the right area. Because basically, human remains detection is article detection. So you've got to be within the area that scent is going to make it to the dog's nose. So if you're underground, then you have to be virtually on top of the bodies to be able to detect that there's something there. In water, you basically have to be, you know, very close. Depends on the currents and stuff like that. But again, in water, 4 months down the line, you're going to have nothing but bones because of predators in the water. They've wasted too much time. I'm not saying that it's useless at this point. I'm not at all. Because, you know, dogs can detect human remains where somebody's been dead for years. So don't confuse what I'm saying here and me saying that it's pointless. It's not at all. It's a good thing that they're doing this. It's fantastic news that they're doing this. They should have done it sooner, though, for all of the reasons I'm explaining. But not all is lost. They just have to, you know, get lucky and be in the right area. And maybe that's due to investigative leads. Maybe it's all down to the boot print and the blanket. Maybe that's the only leads they've got. We don't know, because we don't know what we don't know. Kendall Lee has been a member for 40 months. That's a long time. That's 3.5 years. Yeah, I hope they find them. I mean, look, you know, I do hope that they're not just playing lip service with this, and that they are actually going to spend, you know, the amount of time that's probably going to be necessary to find them. But they do have to have the dogs in the right area, or else it's pointless. Absolutely pointless. But, you know, if they've got investigative leads, then, yeah, take the dogs to all of the areas where there's been a lead, and then let's see. All right, so this is only short, but we've got some new comments from Daniel here. Just let me make this normal speed for you guys who don't like things fast. 2 minutes.
Daniel Martell has been asking RCMP for months to call in cadaver dogs to search for his 2 missing stepchildren. Now the time has come.
It's going to be really hard work now that there's so much vegetation in the woods, but I'm pretty happy that they're going to be able to do it.
4-year-old Jack Sullivan and his 6-year-old sister Lilly were reported missing on May 2nd. They were last seen at their home in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia, a rural community deep in the woods. Nearly 5 months later, there's still no trace of them. RCMP say they need to keep their minds open to any possibility.
What's important to remember is that at this time, we don't have any definitive information to support that the children are deceased, but we have to keep our minds open and look at all investigative avenues.
RCMP did bring in search dogs to scour the area here in Lansdowne Station when the children first went missing back in May. At the time, dogs were given pieces of Jack and Lilly's clothing to track their scent, but nothing was found other than a piece of Lily's blanket, which family members actually located on their own.
Human remains detection dogs are specific to human remain odor, and that's completely different from live searching.
RCMP say 2 dogs will come to Nova Scotia from British Columbia to conduct the specialized search, a bleak mission. But Martell isn't expecting it will bring answers. So are you thinking that the dogs will go in there and won't find anything?
I know for 100% they won't find anything. I mean, that's probably why they waited this long to do it. It's just to keep the public informed, I guess, that they're hard at work.
RCMP say for officer safety and the integrity of the investigation, they won't disclose when the new search will begin or where exactly the cadaver dogs will be deployed, only that it won't be this weekend. Angela McKay.
Daniel has made some pretty weird statements during the last 4 months. But that, I think, has to be in my top 3 of the most bizarre things that Daniel Martell has said during this investigation. He knows 100% they won't find anything, and they're just doing it, to please the public, which could be true. That bit could be true. But saying, I know 100%, I know for a fact they won't find anything, is bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. I mean, what does that has now created a whole bunch, and rightly so, a whole bunch more questioning of Daniel. How do you know they're not going to find him? How do you know that, Daniel? Why? Because they're not there? Well, how do you know they're not there? How do you know where they go, where they're going to search? You don't know where they're going to search. So how do you know they're not going to find them? Yeah, because Daniel knows where the kids are. You've got to ask that question. And for him to say that on the news, it's just crazy, Daniel. Daniel, Daniel needs to just not be interviewed, because he says stuff that just gets people. I'm to the point where he's got to be doing this kind of stuff on purpose. He's got to be. He likes the attention. I can't deal with him. I can't deal with him. I can't deal with him. 100%. Won't find them. Well, great. You've wanted them. You've wanted the cadaver dogs there. Now you're saying you're not going to find anything. Maybe they won't find anything. But I do hope that they're doing more than just playing lip service to this, aspect of the investigation. Yeah, 1 minute he's happy and wanted dogs, and the next he's 100%. Honestly, I don't think he thinks before he actually speaks. And yeah, I understand that these people are not trained in how to, deal with the media. And I think some of the stuff that he said, I think some of it has been taken the wrong way. But you can't blame people for questioning when he says stuff like that. CBC has an article, very descriptive, trying to let you know. I think I've read the CBC one. This is CBC. We're going to be playing this next. This is nearly 8 minutes. So this is more detailed than the other clips. So we're going to play this one next. So maybe this contains the information that's in the article. He's a psychopath. People use that word a lot. I think he's narcissistic. I could see how he might measure high on narcissism. I'm not sure about psychopathy. I don't know him. I don't know him, so I'm not going to say that. But there's elements of his personality that you think it's a little bit narcissistic. Jeanette is wondering if they checked the sawmill yet. I do not know, Buglove. I do not know the answer to that question. Daniel was not happy. He states he's going to leak the RCMP information because they didn't let him know about the dogs. I heard that. I have heard that. So, you see, this is the other thing that Daniel has been saying, oh, well, I know more, and the stuff that I can't say, and he just needs to keep his mouth shut. If he doesn't want people to talk about him and create conspiracies about him, he needs to stop talking. At least, though, there's a level of entertainment, and I know that's the wrong word, but he does keep people talking. He does keep. It's the same with Don Wells in the Summer Wells case. You know, some of the stuff that Don Wells did was outrageous, but it kept people talking, and it kept people at least, you know, mentioning Summer's name. Yes, of course, it was all about what Don said next and what Don did and how drunk Don was and Don having a poop on a live stream and all of that. It truly outrageous stuff, but it kept Summer's name out there. People were talking about the case. And it's the same in this case with Daniel. The stuff that Daniel says, because it's worthy of discussion, it keeps people talking about the case. Why does Daniel keep drip feeding? Yeah, I know. All right, we're going to listen to this. This is almost 8 minutes. So this is way more detailed than the others.
We begin with the latest on that search for the 2 missing children in rural Nova Scotia. RCMP say cadaver dogs will begin searching for Lilly and Jack Sullivan, who went missing in May. But officials are maintaining they don't have any reason to believe that the siblings are dead. Andrew Sampson tells us more.
4.5 months after Lilly and Jack Sullivan went missing from their home in Pictou County, the RCMP says it will send in cadaver dogs trained to pick up the scent of human remains. This is something that family members, including Lilly and Jack's stepfather, have been asking for. So why now? At a news briefing on Friday, an RCMP spokesperson said that although they don't have any information to suggest the children are deceased, they have to consider all avenues. Police say they've been looking into a variety of leads over the course of the investigation, and that they now plan to use the dogs in an area where they believe there is the highest probability of finding Lilly and Jack. 2 dogs and 2 RCMP officers trained in locating human remains are coming from BC to conduct the search. The children's paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray, says she's happy to see the dogs being deployed, but she still questions what took so long. 8.5 square kilometers of dense woods near their home have already been searched, but until now, only dogs that can trace human scent but not human remains had been used. It's unclear when the search will begin, but it won't be this weekend. Police say they're keeping the details close to their chest to protect officer safety and not compromise the investigation. Andrew Sampson, CBC News, Halifax.
Okay, for more insight into this, we're going to now turn to Bruce Pitt-Payne. Bruce is a retired RCMP major crimes investigator joining us tonight from Maple Ridge, BC. Bruce, it is good to speak to you on this.
Hi, Sarah.
So the RCMP planning to use cadaver dogs. What does this news tell you about where we are in the investigation and where things are going? I mean, what they have said is they don't believe they have any reason to think that the children are dead, but the use of cadaver dogs is going to make a lot of people think that they must.
Yeah, and they've said that over and over again. And with the information or the lack of information we have, which is normal at this point, the public wouldn't know exactly what the police know. But if we go on what they're saying, this is a logical step. It seems that they've been doing a thorough process so far, going through all of the steps that generally would happen in a missing persons investigation. And now they're at the point where this is probably the logical next step, even if it's a Hail Mary. Kudos to the police for doing things that might give some sort of resolution.
So what is a cadaver dog?
All right, I'm trying not to interrupt these news pieces too much, and maybe I should for fair use. But look, it is a logical next step. Absolutely, it totally is. And if it is a Hail Mary, you know, if they aren't working off a particular lead that has meant that they've got to employ cadaver dogs, and it is a Hail Mary, and they've basically reached the end of their investigation, then they've actually wasted a whole bunch of resources. And obviously, you know, benefit of hindsight and everything, they don't know what they don't know until they've investigated it. I get that. But in the United States and in the UK, the reason why they use cadaver dogs early on, when someone is missing and they've got reason to believe that they're in a specific area or that they've been murdered in a specific area, they get the cadaver dogs out, because what it does is it gives them an increased chance of finding that person as early as possible. Going back to what I said about it's better to get a body early on in its decomp process than late on when it's basically a skeleton that has been scavenged by animals, because it gives you more information. But if it is a Hail Mary, I do hope, and I'll keep saying this again and again, I suspect in the coming days, I do hope it's not just playing lip service to, oh, well, this is the next logical step. We'll get these 2 dogs in for a day or 2 days, and then we'll call it. You know, we'll call it a day and say, we did try. You know, we've tried everything now. We did try. I do hope this is a serious effort. And just 2 dogs, because, look, dogs finding anything, it's really, really taxing on them. What they tend to do is get one dog out and then rest that dog and get the other dog out. So they're not going to be able to have 2 dogs working at the same time, you know, maybe sending 2 dogs, you know, 1 dog to one area, 1 dog to another area. They're not going to be able to do that for a concerted length of time, because the dogs are going to get exhausted. So generally speaking, they get 1 dog and then they get the other dog, and they switch. And if 1 dog gets something, if 1 dog alerts on something, then they get the other dog to see if that dog also alerts. But it does concern me. It really concerns me that they are just playing lip service to this and saying, yeah, next logical step. Here we go. You know, you wanted it, Daniel. You wanted it, Belinda. We've tried it. We didn't find them. And therefore, we're at the end of the road. I really hope that we're not going to be in that position. Now, a lot of things that they've investigated are, you know, leads as to, you know, Lilly and Jack are in New Brunswick, and they, you know, the Cobequid Pass, and the sighting supposedly of Lilly and Cody Sullivan in New Brunswick. You know, all of those things obviously had to be chased down. And then there's that Natasha Haywood sighting of children on Gerlach Road on that morning. All of those things had to be fully investigated because of the possibility that the children had been abducted. Of course, they have to follow up all of those things. But on May the 7th, they said that they believed the children were dead. That's why they were scaling back the search in favour of other investigative avenues. That's exactly what they said on May the 7th. And I'm not going to let them forget that. That's what they said on May the 7th. At that point, they should have brought in cadaver dogs. At that point, that's when police services in the United States and in the UK would have said, all right, time to bring in the cadaver dogs. And it saves a whole bunch of time in the long run. If they truly believe that those children are dead, there's no need to go following up on leads about they're in New Brunswick or this place or that place. Because if they truly believe they're dead, then get your cadaver dogs out. It's right ask about face.
Dog then looking for?
They're trained specifically, aside from other police dogs training. They look, instead of for cross training and all different sorts of scents, they're focused primarily on the decomposition of human remains. And so that's what they're going to be looking for. So at least the police can possibly rule out certain areas.
They're not saying when this is actually going to happen, where it's actually going to take place, this particular part of the search. Why wouldn't they be a little more open about that?
Yeah, there's several reasons for that. The predominant reason is that they don't want what we in the business used to call looky-loos showing up. They could distract the dogs. You can imagine that, for instance, if people show up with heavy perfume on, that alone could be a scent noise and a distraction to the dogs and interference. But also the having people around could distract them. And frankly, it could be in dangerous terrain. You never know, somebody could get hurt. The other reason is purely investigative, and it's regarding something called holdback evidence. If the police did in fact find some human remains in a certain area and it was released to anybody else in any way, it would mean they couldn't test the reliability of a confession later. So if somebody said, here's where the remains should be, it would show that that was a reliable, and I'll use the term confession, should that come later. So the police do not want to ruin that opportunity.
And I think all investigations have that caveat from the police, that they don't want to give exact locations. They don't want YouTubers turning up. They don't want the media turning up. They don't want the helicopter overhead. They don't want all of the noise and just the extra distractions from the dogs. And of course, he's right that they don't want investigative information to be out there, because you get people, idiots, who will say, oh yeah, I did it, just for 15 minutes of fame. You know, they're just crazy people out there. So yeah, very good reasons why they're not going to say exactly where they're searching, or if they find them, they're not going to give the exact location. They're not going to give you the GPS location of where they were found. Now, obviously, things like that sometimes get leaked, and sometimes you find exactly where it was before, you know, they release it. But if it does turn out that this is a homicide, then of course they've got to keep that information very close to the vest until after a trial, and then they can release that information. We'll probably hear about it at a trial. But if they don't find the bodies, if they have enough evidence, I've just been kind of watching the chat, kind of, they can convict with no body. There is such a thing as a non-body homicide case. But it's more difficult. What they have to have is very strong evidence to suggest that that person is dead, and that the person that they've charged with it is the culprit. So let's take, for example, the case of Harmony Montgomery from New Hampshire. Little baby Harmony, 5 years old, murdered by her dad. And her body has never been found. But he's been convicted. Adam Montgomery is in jail for the rest of his life. He has been convicted, but it took a long time to get there. He was a suspect for a long time. It took him a long time to get there because with no body, they have to convince the jury that the person is dead. Now, it's actually easier with an adult to prove that someone's dead because, adults leave a trail behind them this day and age. They leave a trail that, they access bank accounts. They have to have some kind of way to get money. They're likely to use a phone or, there's ways and means that people can be tracked down if it's an adult who has, just run away, start a new life in the Bahamas or something. With a child, then children don't have that kind of trail to follow, the electronic trail, they don't have it. But that said, a little kid ain't going to live for 4 months in the woods and be able to survive. An adult might be able to, but a kid wouldn't be able to, not at 6 and 4. But yeah, they can convict without a body, but it has to be, they have to be able to prove that the person is dead. Now, with Harmony's case, they had Kayla Montgomery. They took a deal off Kayla. Kayla Montgomery should have been charged with something. It smarts me to this day that Kayla Montgomery was never charged, with knowing exactly what happened to Harmony. I know she didn't kill her, but still, she knew what had happened to Harmony, and she didn't go to the cops. But they did a deal with her because they needed her testimony. And also, they had decomposition in the attic where he'd stored Harmony's body for a while. That was Harmony's DNA. So they did have information, but they had to rely on Kayla's testimony and some circumstantial evidence. And they don't have Harmony's body, but they were able to do it. But it took a long time. Now, if they've got a body and that body, you're able to get the cause of death from that body, then it's a lot easier because at least they're dead. That person is dead. You can't charge somebody with homicide if you don't know whether they're dead or not. So the RCMP in Lilly and Jack's case are nowhere near ready to charge anyone if they're saying that they don't know whether they're dead or not. They no way can they charge anyone at this stage. So all these people who are saying there's going to be an arrest soon, there isn't, because they can't even determine whether Lilly and Jack are alive or dead. So how can they charge somebody with homicide if they don't know whether the person is dead or not? So there's that.
Why do you say that you feel like this is the time, the appropriate time to bring in this kind of a device, these animals? I'm just wondering if you were looking to rule something like this out, why not do it, a couple of months ago? This goes back to May.
Yeah, generally the dogs, I'm going to give you an idea here, is they're not perfect. And I think that was said earlier, and from the research I've done, they're not perfect, so you could get false or negative, false positives or negatives, meaning that if the dog thought it detected something, it could be rotting foliage, it could be a dead animal.
No, sorry. You've got a well-trained dog. They are not going to alert on rotting foliage. No, they are not. I'm sorry. They are not. The thing that they're most likely to get a false positive on is human sewage. If there's been like a sewage pipe leak in the past, because, underground, it will hold that sewage. It will hold that scent for a long time. So that can give a false positive. Dead animals, unlikely, again, like I said earlier, because I answered this very question, a very well-trained dog will not alert on a dead animal. It will determine the difference between a human decomp and an animal decomp, a non-human animal decomp. New dogs, dogs that, you know, are just maybe just past the certification, maybe possibly. Some animals are closer to our protein structure than others, but no. They're not perfect though, just like humans are not perfect. You could be the best person in the world at your job, and it doesn't mean to say that you'll never make a mistake. They're animals, they are alive, they have emotion, they have moods, they can be having an off day, just like we can. So it doesn't matter how well trained you are, whether you're human or a dog. If you're having an off day, you're having an off day. So you can have the best trained person at their job who still can make mistakes, or the best trained dog at their job and they can still make mistakes. They're not computers. They are alive. They have emotions. They have moods. Sometimes they feel unwell. Sometimes they're just too distracted. This is why they need an area where there aren't any distractions. They don't want, like in the Sebastian Rogers case, and they have a whole working construction site while the dogs are trying to find a scent. That's the obvious example to give here. How can they expect dogs to work when there's an active construction site going on? That's just crazy to me. And it always will be crazy to me. However, let's move on.
Could be anything like that. That could lead to a bias on the part of the investigators, redirect them from areas that they should be working on. So it could waste time and delay a result. Now, you could get a false negative as well, where they don't detect anything, leading to a bias that the children are not in that area. And that could lead to a bias where tunnel vision kicks in and the police leave that search scene. So, because it's not a...
More concerning is a false negative. That's more concerning. And yes, it will happen. You know, that a body's there and a dog fails to alert on it. Well, that's more problematic. Does it happen? Yeah, it can. But it tends to be in situations where a dog can't get close enough, or they're not quite in the right, because if, let's say, a body is lying in undergrowth and they're maybe within, let's say, 100 yards of it, but the wind's in the wrong direction, the scent of that article, because this is just article detection, the scent of that article isn't going to get to the dog's nose. So they have to be in a position where they're close enough for that scent to get to the dog's nose. And they could be reasonably close to it. And if the wind is in the wrong direction, or there's competing scents that distract the dog, then they could pass it by and not alert. And there's been cases where people have died in very, very thick undergrowth and the dog hasn't been able to get close enough. And you have to assume that the wind wasn't in the right direction. Or, there's a really, really bizarre case in the UK. The case of Tia Sharp from 2012. I think it was 2012. Does anybody, if you're in the UK, you might remember this case. Tia Sharp. Her grandma's boyfriend murdered her, right? And wrapped her body in like bin liners and just wrapped it up really tight and put it in the attic. And his plan was to remove the body, like, you know, at his leisure, I guess. But what he didn't account for, because this guy really wasn't that bright, Stuart Hazel, I think his name was, he didn't account for all the media that was going to park outside like day and night. And the cops were there like day and night. And he didn't have the opportunity to remove Tia's body from the attic. So it was about, I think it was about a week in, and they'd searched the house. They'd searched the house numerous times. An officer had even put their head into the attic, and they didn't find her. They didn't find her. Then, a week later, the smell of the decomp was that strong that even the humans were able to smell it. And the cops went up into the attic, and hey presto, there she was, decomposing, wrapped in these bin liners. Now, you might say, well, why? Because they did use cadaver dogs. Why didn't the cadaver dogs alert? Well, they did. They did. The cadaver dogs that were brought in showed interest in the upstairs near where the loft hatch was. But the cops didn't want to get the dogs up there. They didn't take the dogs up the loft. I don't know why, because surely, you know, you get a cop at the top, you get a cop at the bottom, you lift the dog up and pass it to the other person. But no, they didn't. They didn't do that. One cop poked their head up into the, you know, through the loft hatch into the attic and had a look. And because the body, it's like stuffed it right to the back, and I don't know, probably put stuff around it and that, they didn't search it. They didn't search the loft. They didn't search it. They just poked their head in. Anyway, the dogs did show interest at the loft hatch. It's just that the handlers just ignored them. So sometimes you get a dog that is alerting, but it's handler error. The handler is in the wrong. The handler doesn't register that the dog is alerting or ignores the dog. Chris Watts, the famous footage of the dog handler just completely ignoring a dog's alert. This Labrador was signposting, he was pointing over the road at a dumpster. And that's exactly the dumpster where Chris Watts had put a bunch of stuff like blankets and stuff from Bella and Cece. There was evidence in that dumpster that they never recovered. It's just, you know, the cops had to thank their lucky stars that Chris folded and pled guilty, because they lost a bunch of evidence by the dog handler just chatting with the cop, walking along with the cop, ignoring her dog. So listen, don't blame the dogs when they make mistakes, because more often than not, it's it's the handler's error, not the dogs. So there's that.
100% perfect. It is not the optimal way. It is another way of trying to find what happened. And usually it comes later in the investigation, because there's lots of other things that they've been working on.
We had heard, from the stepfather in this, that he was concerned that they weren't searching elsewhere outside of the wooded area behind the home, that perhaps the children had been taken. If, in fact, these cadaver dogs go in and they don't find any evidence of decomposing body, if the children are not found there, where do you think that at this stage of the investigation, what are the next steps?
Well, I can tell you that, for one thing, just if we still focus on the cadaver dogs, the fact that there is a negative result from any upcoming search does not mean that they aren't going to do it again. And that's what I meant by a false negative. If they don't find anything this time, there could be a logical reason if remains were found later, which would mean that they will do continuous searches probably. And I'm going to guess, it could be 6 months, could be every year. But the cadaver dog handler, I believe it was Staff Sergeant Pike, said earlier that if a remains are underground, for instance, or in a container or underwater, then as time goes by, a subsequent search might reveal more of a scent.
Not necessarily, because of predation. In a container, like put in a container, yeah, Yeah, put in a container, but buried in a shallow grave, get dug up by animals, possibly laid out in the open, definitely predation. Underwater, definitely predation. They did check the septic tanks, yes, they did. It's in the court documents, this one. It's in this court document. They did the septic tank on the property, on Janie's property. They also did the septic tanks on the campground, the nearby campground. They did those septic tanks as well. All right, next one. I've got one more of these. This is only short. And then I want to play you a little bit from, oops, shit. I want to play you a little bit from the DT show because Janie was on. So I want to play a little bit of that. I'll also signpost to this. This came out yesterday, but before the stuff about the RCMP doing new searches. And it was this that I was going to talk about today. It's a podcast by the Globe and Mail, and it's about the case. And they've got interviews with, just like little snippets. They got Daniel on there, they got Belinda on there, Haley, and the little clip from Haley I'd never heard before. So it was just a review of the case. And I probably will go through it and do a video maybe about something to do with this, but I'm not going to talk about it today. I'm just going to signpost you to it, that if you haven't heard it, then go and watch it. And I've put this in the description box, even though I'm not going to play any clips from it. I have put this in the description box. So you can get it from the Globe and Mail on YouTube. They also do a podcast, so you can get it from any podcast provider, and it's called the Decibel. So if you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or whatever, then you can get it from there as well. But there's no visuals. It literally is just audio. It's interesting, but I was halfway through it when the news came out about the new searches and the Cadaver dogs. I was literally listening to this when I saw it. I saw Belinda's Facebook. It was Belinda's Facebook that I saw first, and then I waited until the RCMP actually released that, yes, they were going to do it. So, yeah, I was halfway through this, but I have listened to it all now. So it's worth a listen. And I know some YouTube channels have already played it. I might pick like a few pieces out of this to do a video at some point. But I think the new searches and, the Cadaver dog stuff, I think is more timely, let's say, at this stage. All right, this is just another short one from CTV, and I don't think there's anything really new in this, but I might as well play it because I've got it queued up here, and it's only a couple of minutes long, so let's listen.
We begin tonight with a development in the search for the missing Sullivan children. RCMP are bringing in specialized cadaver dogs to look for the pair who have been missing from their Pictou County home in Lansdowne Station since early May. CTV late anchor Bruce Frisco has been following today's developments. He joins us in the news center. Bruce, considerable pressure now on the police to offer any information on this case, hey?
Right you are, Todd. The force hosting a news conference this afternoon with widespread interest from right across the country. In fact, there are people, as you know, around the world who've been watching the case with keen interest, posting about it on social media. They're making YouTube videos. As you mentioned, 6-year-old Lilly, 4-year-old Jack Sullivan reported missing May 2nd from their trailer home in Lansdowne Station, which is a very rural area. The search effort, especially in those early days, was extensive. Hundreds of volunteers and experts combed and then recombed kilometers around the family home. And you may recall police dogs were part of those searches. What's changed now is the introduction of cadaver dogs. Simply put, they are specially trained to pick up on the scent of decomposing human remains, and they're generally very successful at finding it, whether it's underground, in water, or even ashes. The success rate is quite remarkable.
In Nova Scotia, back in 2017, there was a research study conducted with the Medical Examiner's Office and the RCMP. This is kind of the building blocks of the human remains detection program for the RCMP. And when they did their study, I believe it was published in 2017, and their status for the training exercises was a 94% success rate.
I think I'd be very confident if...
There you go, 94%. So that was a study from 2017 by the RCMP, and their dogs were 94% successful in detecting human remains. Look, if they're that confident about their dogs, why don't they train more dogs? I don't understand why they have so few dogs. You know, if they know that they're highly successful, why don't they train more dogs to do this kind of thing? There's so many people missing in Canada. There's so many people missing in Canada. You might find some of them if you employ your cadaver dogs. So 94%, I'm going to have to see if I can find that study, whether it's been published anywhere. But I knew I'd heard cadaver dogs are like around 94, 95%. I've heard that before. So that is an interesting statistic.
If we can get our dogs in the right area, that our dogs, even if it's been a hot, dry summer, that should be fine for us.
One is, why now? What's changed? Well, police insist there's been no definitive evidence that Jack and Lilly are in fact deceased, but they are obligated to explore that possibility. So that's why the dogs are being brought in now. And we should tell you, we're already seeing some reaction from family members. Paternal grandmother Belinda Gray quoted as saying she is thrilled that police are bringing in the specialized animals from out west, but adds it should have been done a few months ago. As to when they'll arrive, police will only say it is in the coming days. Todd.
All right, 819 tips, 80 interviews. We'll see if this provides any answers. Thank you, Bruce, in the News Center. Of course, he has our late update at...
Thank you, Bruce, from the News Center. They only had dogs since 2016. Yeah. Yeah. That is crazy. It's crazy. Bringing in dogs from the total opposite side of the country. It's nuts. Look, the United States has got around 5,000 human remains detection dogs working. Now, that'll include, you know, all police services. So that'll be sheriff's offices, state police, FBI. It's just a rounded figure, but around an estimated 5,000 dogs have been trained up by police services in the United States. Compare that with 12 in Canada. We've got a couple of thousand here in the UK, and we're a very small nation. Like, from top to bottom, like from the top of Scotland to the bottom of Cornwall, you're only looking at, what, 800 miles? And then I don't know how far it is across, but we use cadaver dogs extensively. Cadaver dogs are used because they're successful and it's cost effective. All right, I want to play a little bit from the DT show. This is from 13 hours ago, and he did a call-in show. So Travis was on. If anybody's followed the Delphi case, Travis goes on live streams a lot in the Delphi case. He's an attorney based out of Texas, I think. And I was listening to this morning, just kind of like as I was doing stuff, and I recognized his voice, and I was like, surely that's Travis. That's Travis. And it was. Kent was on as well, and then Janie. So Janie was on actually for quite a while, but I'm just going to play one little section here. But it's definitely, this show here is definitely worth a listen. Definitely worth a listen. So I've put all of the links, everything that I've played, in the description box. So I'm going to start from about here and just play it for a few minutes and comment as we go.
Like she wanted to be there. in the end?
At first, really, she had, well, her situation with her grandmother, I don't know what happened there. But the thing is they called me on a Monday, and Daniel called me on a Monday and asked me if they can move into the trailer. And I said, yes. I said, when are you moving? And he said, we don't know yet. And the next thing I know, they were moving in on that Friday.
So this is relating to how Daniel and Malaya ended up living in the trailer. And they just called her one day saying, could they move into the trailer? That they were living with Malaya's grandma. Now, whatever happened, I don't know whether they fell out with her or what, or whether she wanted them to leave. But Malaya was pregnant with Meadow at the time. So Janie said, yeah. And Janie then had to find an alternative place to live. And that's how she came to live in the RV. But I just found this an interesting little snippet. They just called her and she said, yeah. And Malaya was happy with it because she got a roof over her head.
I had 4 days to find somewhere to live.
Oh, geez. And so, because, you know, I was reading the report and I've talked to some people that are close to Malaya, some of her family members, and it sounds like, to me, my perception is that she was not happy there. Now, I don't necessarily believe or know for a fact one reason or another why, but I do believe that she wanted to maybe perhaps leave Daniel. I think she was telling her friends and family things so that way they wouldn't judge her if she left another man, another father of her kids. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what that was the impression that I got off of speaking with people who are kind of close. Did you get that impression in the last couple of weeks or anything, that maybe perhaps the relationship was not going to last?
I heard from a source that she was planning on leaving Daniel 2 weeks prior to before this happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who Janie's source was, but Malaya was planning to leave. So the children going missing, and then her mother basically having a word with her and, you know, saying, come with us. It gave her the opportunity to go. Now, that obviously will lead to speculation as to whether Malaya engineered the children going missing so she could leave. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to necessarily say that, but it's interesting timing. It's very interesting timing.
She was happy when she first came here because she had a place to live. They had a place to live rent-free. Yeah. Rent-free, people.
So they've been living there for 2 years rent-free. So Janie's not been charging them rent or anything. They've been living there rent-free. Janie isn't a credible source. No, well, look, I don't believe any of them. I take everything they say at face value. I don't believe it. I listen to it and I consider it, but I'm not going to believe any of them at this point, at this stage. I think Belinda is credible. The rest of the family that we've heard from so far, not so much. Yeah, the stealing from grandma. Yeah, there has been that rumor that they stole Grandma Patty's credit card, and maybe that's why she asked them to leave. I don't know the timing of the stealing of the card. It's just rumors, so I wouldn't want to say that she asked them to leave because they stole from her. But clearly she's back friendly with them now because they went to Patty's house on the Wednesday. So 2 days before Lilly and Jack disappeared, they were there. They do laundry at Patty's. So clearly she's friends with them again now. But she seems to, like Janie was saying, that Patty and Hayden always come to Lilly and Jack's birthday parties, but Cindy, Malaya's mother, and then Wade, her boyfriend, Cindy's boyfriend, never came to the birthday parties, but Patty and Hayden did, but Cindy and Wade didn't. Interesting.
The only thing they had to do was pay the power bill. But after I asked them how long they were going to stay, and they said till after Meadow was born, the baby was born, and they said it was only temporary.
Yeah.
2 years later, they were still here. So if she didn't want to be here, she could have left anytime she wanted to. Nobody was holding her back.
No, maybe not, but no, maybe she could have physically gone, but where would she have gone? Like, she may have felt that she burnt bridges. She may have felt that she burnt bridges with her grandma, and maybe she wasn't in, really good terms with her mother. Again, it's really interesting why Malaya left on the 3rd of May. It really does concern me that she left. And, you can speculate and say, well, maybe there was DV, maybe he was really controlling, and maybe she was really unhappy and she had postnatal depression. You can say all of that stuff. However, the fact that she just completely blocked Daniel, she just completely won't speak to him at all when her kids disappeared, because not Daniel's kids, her kids disappeared from that property, and she's not even staying in communication with the people who are still living on that property. I did a video, was it yesterday, about the 3 biggest red flags, like giant red flags in this case, and one of them is Malaya leaving. And I don't really know why I'm so bothered by it, but I really am bothered by it. But anyway, she goes on to talk about the environments, like what the environment's like now, given that the cadaver dogs are coming, given that there's going to be new searches. I would argue that this is a good time. Like, you've not got all the foliage is in full bloom. It's all the leaves are on the trees throughout the summer. Once you get to autumn or fall, then you've got the trees that drop their leaves, like deciduous trees. They drop their leaves. They're starting to drop their leaves now. We've still got all leaves here, but it's not cold enough yet. But maybe in Canada, maybe I have heard from some Canadians saying that leaves are dropping already. So you've got that reduction in the overall canopy. Now, I know that a lot of the trees in that area are evergreen, like the spruce. So you're still going to have a lot of tree coverage in that area. But certainly the deciduous trees will have dropped. And also the ground coverage, some of that will go as well. Now, Janie says that the ground coverage will stay. Now, it depends what plants are there, doesn't it? Like where I live, round where the creek is, you just can't get there in summer. You just can't get there. It's like nettles and thistles and just all sorts of stuff that's going to sting you up. You just can't get anywhere close to it. But it's starting to die now, and I'll be able to walk along the creek again. So that type of foliage dies in winter. Stuff that doesn't die, like brambles, blackberry bushes. There's an entire field near me that has been overtaken by brambles. So you cannot go in that entire field. An entire field. It's only a small field, but it's an entire field that's now owned by brambles. You cannot set foot in it at any time of year, because brambles are just horrible. Blackberries are lovely, but you can't go, well, like when they overtake a place, they really take over. So if it's that type of foliage that doesn't die down in winter, then they're going to be no better off. So it depends on the type of foliage that the searchers are going to have to contend with. But at least it's not the height of summer when everything's growing, when everything's in bloom. So at least there's that.
No, yeah, I know. But for a young lady who, she has 2 kids from one man, now has another child from another man.
I don't know whether I can just get it on maybe a minute. I always get wrong when I try to do this. I always miss stuff out.
That's true.
She wouldn't have had any problem leaving here, and Daniel lived with.
Maybe another minute. It's easy to do this on a phone, but it's not easy to do this on a computer.
Okay.
Because when we had that there, whenever we had that floor, I forget.
Oh, right. Okay. She's talking about it. This is the bit that I want to get to.
What's under the trees during the fall versus. to me at least.
Well, she didn't have any problem leaving Patty's house, and Daniel lived there with them.
That's
so
true.
She wouldn't have had any problem leaving here, and Daniel lived with her here.
Right. No, I get that. And
all right, so he's gonna ask the question now.
You know, last couple questions I have for you before we get too long. Fall's coming. How much of a difference? I know right now it's not a big difference, but as fall progresses, as we go into October, how does the landscape change?
Just the leaves fall. The landscape doesn't change at all. Like, I mean, the trees just, the leaves just fall off the trees. Like, I mean,
so you can see further
nothing
though.
changes out here. Huh?
You can see a little. Can you see further? Maybe not like a tremendous amount. I'm not thinking that you can see miles, but is it easier to see through the underbrush, what's under the trees during the fall versus maybe perhaps in May?
No, not really.
Okay.
Because when we had that there, whenever we had that I forget. I'm trying to, the storm.
Yeah.
It's been the same way. It hasn't changed any at all. And as I said, like when we used to take the kids for walks, Daniel and I, we used to take the grandchildren and for walks, and I'd end up carrying Jack through the woods because he wouldn't walk because it's that bad. Like, I mean, as I said, all the trails here are either blowing down or they grew up. Like these trails haven't been used out here in years. So the only trail that's normally used is the old road up the top of the hill here to the pipeline is the only one that's used.
And
yeah, so this is this trail that she's talking about. Just a second. So this is where they live, and there's a trail kind of like here. I don't know whether you can get through this part, like there, and then up there, and then you can get to the pipeline going there, like just heading. That is, and maybe there's a trail there. Difficult to tell from here, but there is ways through this woodland. There are ways through this woodland, and even if you go back, I'm on Google Maps now, but if I'm on Google Earth and I can, switch like years and look at it from different years, you can still see that there are trails through this woods. Now, if Lilly and Jack knew the trails, then if they wanted to go and have an adventure, then they could have got through the woods using those trails. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying it's possible that that's what happened. But Janie doesn't think they're in the woods because Jack had to be carried. Now, there was the Hurricane Fiona that went through 2 years ago, and there's still a lot of damage in the woods from that. So, yeah, you're still going to have a lot of coverage. You see, the thing is, for dogs on the ground, that's not too much of a problem. As long as they can access it, they're more nimble than humans. So they could probably get into areas where humans can't. But are Lilly and Jack going to be in areas where humans can't get? The answer is no. So I'm going back to the point I made earlier that you've got to get the dogs in the right location to have any chance that they're going to detect anything. But you can rule some places out straight away, because if a human can't get through, then there's absolutely no way a child could either. Yeah, having said that, kids do the darndest things. Kids really do the darndest things. But it's not so much the ground cover that I'm concerned with. If they're going to accompany the dogs, like if they're doing wider searches, as well as the dogs, they're going to do other searches as well. This time of year is better because all the deciduous trees, once their leaves have gone, then you're going to be able to look down through what would have been the canopy, and you're going to be able to see more of the ground. Like with Travis Decker. Now, we've not got 100% confirmation that the remains that were found in Washington State are Travis Decker's yet, but assuming that they are, the way that they were found was via a drone. a drone was going over that area and they spotted something that was of interest to them on the drone. And then they got the helicopter out there and they got some people to get down from the helicopter. So they didn't do a hike up the mountain. They actually like jettisoned people in via a helicopter, and they found scattered bones. So obviously there'd been a lot of animal predation, but Travis Decker's clothes, like the clothes that they knew Travis Decker was wearing. And that's what had been spotted by the drone. But if you've got a large tree canopy, then you're not going to spot that. You're not going to see that. If the trees are, you know, all in full bloom, you're not going to spot that. This just so happened that it was a mountainside, and this drone operator spotted something, and lo and behold, it's clothes that are consistent with what Travis Decker was wearing. There's also some other personal effects. So I think it is Travis. I do. Like the way that Sheriff Morrison was talking, like saying, you know, he believes it's Travis because of the possessions that are out there. But the bones have been scattered. So it'd be interesting to see whether they can even get any DNA from these bones. But they managed it with Brian Laundrie. They managed to get most of Brian Laundrie's bones. Took them a while. They got most of them, though. But Brian Laundrie had been chomped on by wild dogs, so canines, and rodents. So not the gators. Everyone was saying, oh, he's going to get eaten by alligators. No, no, no. It was wild dogs. It was coyotes or actual dogs, but canines and rodents. Interesting. All right, let's go back to this just for another couple of minutes. It's a very interesting conversation. Definitely go and listen to this.
But that's a different pipeline than the boots, right?
It's the same pipeline, but it's cut in half. It's cut in half because of the Lansdowne Road. Like you can go up back of my house to the pipeline, you cross the railroad tracks, and then you cross the Lansdowne Road, and then you go back on the pipeline again.
So,
all right, so she's talking about the pipeline. So, no, dingoes. Are there dingoes in Florida? I thought dingoes were Australian. If you're in Australia and you go missing and you die, you might get eaten by dingoes. So she's talking about the pipeline. So you go up to the trails to the pipeline, and then you've got the railway line. Is that the railway line? Yeah. And then you've got Lansdowne Road, which cuts the pipeline. I assume it goes underground. I assume it goes underground at that point and then pops back up. But you can walk along this pipeline. Just and that is where the boot print was found, or a collection of boot prints. It wasn't just one boot print. It was a collection of boot prints that were the same size as Lily's boots.
So the only trail that's accessible right now, or at that time, just so happened to be the same trail where they found boot prints, correct?
Yeah, well, the pipeline is all open. Like, I mean, it's an open space.
Right.
Like, I mean, it does. They keep it trimmed.
Right. You see, I mean, to me, that just kind of leads more into what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? It'd be different, you know. And
that's
to me,
that's quite a walk for two kids through the woods, and I'm a grown up, and it takes me quite a while to walk from here to my brother's house.
See, Janie doesn't believe that Lily and Jack are in the woods. She doesn't. DT does. His theory is that they've wandered off and they were in the woods. I'm open. I'm 50-50. I think they could have wandered off and be in those woods, but there's too many red flags for me to say, yeah, I believe they're in the woods. In the cases where, like Sebastian Rogers, I believe Sebastian Rogers walked off of his own volition and he's dead somewhere. I don't believe his parents did anything to him. I don't believe he was abducted. I mean, it's possible, but I believe he walked off and he's dead somewhere. But in this case, I'm not going to say that. I don't know. Who's DT? This guy here. This guy, the DT show. Why can I not move it up? This guy, the DT show. It used to be called the Drunk Turkey Show, but he's changed it to just DT Show now. I think his actual name's Daniel, but don't quote me on that. But I just call him DT.
No, I know. There was a 2-year-old though that walked through Arizona desert, 7 miles. 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So
There was. I did a video about this case. A 2-year-old boy walked 7 miles through the Arizona desert, and a dog took him to his master. So the dog took him home. You know, the dog took him to his home. And then I think it was a rancher, who's like, what are you doing? Like, the dog brings a little kid home. It's like Lassie, you know, it's like this big dog brings this little kid home, and turns out that he'd been missing overnight and he'd walked 7 miles. So he's so lucky that he was found by this dog who you know, befriended him and took him home, you know. So that could have ended so badly. If no one had found him, he would have died of exhaustion and dehydration in the Arizona desert. But as it was, a dog found him and took him home. And then the rancher was able to, you know, look up, oh, there is actually a kid missing, and call the cops. So he was a very lucky boy, and he was 2 years old and walked 7 miles. So it's absolutely possible that Lilly and Jack could have walked to the pipeline. Absolutely possible. At 6 and 4. Absolutely possible. Did they, though, is another question.
You know,
well, as I said, I'm an adult, and it takes me quite a while to walk. Even if I went through the trail, it's going to take me quite a while to walk through a trail.
I mean, average foot speed about, let's just say they're going slow at 3 miles an hour. I mean, if it's 40 minutes that they were out there walking, I mean, that's 2 miles, 2+ miles that they would have gotten. And that's at a very snail pace.
It's
about 2 miles. And an average walking pace for an adult is a 15-minute mile. Like, that's you know, not like really slow, but not like mega brisk either. Just normal walking pace is a 15-minute mile. So you could probably a 6-year-old could get that up to that standard. 40 minutes, I would probably say more like a mile, because they're not going to go in a straight line, are they? You know, kids. And if they're having an adventure, I think if they're in the woods, it's very possible that they got out of the search area, and that the reason why they didn't find them was because they were out of the search area. That's very possible. That's very possible. Yeah, we've talked about water earlier on, so if you just rewind. But yeah, basically, yeah, they can.
A mile and a half from my door to my brother's door. A mile and a half.
See, and in 40 minutes, they could have gone further than that.
Not Jack. No, because Jack always stopped to look for bugs, even out here in the yard when the other kids wanted to play with him. He was too busy looking for bugs.
Yeah, so Jack, you know, Lilly might be, come on, Jack, we're going for an adventure. And Jack's there kind of looking for bugs. I don't know whether this is the part where she talks about the blanket, or it might be earlier on, but I just want to mention the blanket again. Just
towards town is at the New Larrick Cemetery Road.
Maybe it's earlier.
Wasn't looking at the time, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, like we have no phone reception out here at all.
Yeah. No, I get it.
No, I think I've probably missed it. I'm not going to dwell on it because I talked about the blanket a lot. I just want to mention it, though, because what Janie says is that the blanket was found near the pipeline. And everybody's been saying the blanket was found near the pipeline. And somebody's put this on Google Maps. I've not put this on. This is Google Maps. Someone has actually put this on Google Maps. This is a thing now on Google Maps. Lilly and Jack found blanket location. somebody's actually contacted Google to have this put on. Jack and Lilly's found blanket location, missing persons organisation, and the address. I don't know who's put that on, but somebody's put that on Google. So apparently, according to Google, now the location's here of Lilly and Jack's blanket, which is further than the pipeline. But what it says in these court documents has got me really confused about this blanket, because they say in the court documents that it was found on Lansdowne Station Road. Not Lansdowne Road, Lansdowne Station Road. Lansdowne Road and Lansdowne Station Road are two completely separate roads. Let me show you. This is Lansdowne Road. This down here is Lansdowne Station Road. Starting here, Lansdowne Station Road. So this is where the cops say it was found. Everyone else says it was found near the pipeline. So I'm wondering whether the cops have just made a mistake and it actually was found near the pipeline, and this court document is wrong. Maybe the cops didn't know the difference between Lansdowne Road and Lansdowne Station Road. I don't know. But when I read this, I went down this rabbit hole of, well, how could the blanket get down there? Because it's in completely the opposite direction to the pipeline. I remember doing a video, reading through this entire document when it came out, and saying, well, this is completely opposite to everything that we've said about the blanket. It's the wrong road. Now, I don't know what's right. I don't know whether to believe this document. It could well be just a mistake, like the cop didn't realise that there were two separate roads. Thank you, The Quiet Observer, for gifting 5 memberships. You're very kind. Wild Edibles, Dinosaur, Leona, Patty, and Ninchi. Thank you so much, The Quiet Observer, for gifting 5 memberships. If you've never been a member before, go and check out the members area. We've got a bunch of stuff in there. Go and check it out. All right, so yeah. I'm happy to go with the majority and say that the blanket was found near the pipeline. If it was, then that's obviously the place where the cadaver dogs need to go. Because if you've got the blanket up there, let's assume it wasn't planted, and you've got the pipeline boot prints, well, maybe, just maybe, Lilly and Jack did walk away. Maybe they are in this area. And maybe the searches that happened in May just completely missed them. So if I was a handler, I would want to do the property. I would absolutely want to do the property. To do my due diligence, I'd want to do the property. But along this pipeline. But how far do you go? How far do you go out? Do you know what I mean? How far do you go out? But it could well be that RCMP have got other leads. I just hope, as I said before, I just hope they're not doing this to play lip service to cadaver dogs, and they are actually going to do some really, spend... I don't know how long these dogs can stay out there, but budget constraints will all come into it, won't they? It'll all come down to money eventually. They're not going to be able to fund them like week after week after week, are they? They've come over from British Columbia. It's not like they're going to be able to go home at night. They're going to have to pay for their board and lodgings. This is the other side of Canada. Like, we've got Nova Scotia's right here. Nova Scotia. And then all the ways over. Ooh. What's happened here? All the ways over here is British Columbia. I mean, it's the opposite side of Canada. It's about as westerly as you can get. I mean, they're flying these dogs in from British Columbia. Let's just hope that they find something, and let's just hope that they actually give them a chance, and they're not just there for like a day or 2 days and they go, oh, well, we tried. The whole pipeline is underground. Yeah, but the trail, so they say it's the pipeline. I'm not saying that the pipeline's actually there. Like our gas pipes are underground, except there's a field, right? There's a field near me, and it goes like down a dip, like quite a big dip. And the pipeline is like suspended on these like struts, and kids climb up it and sit on the pipeline, and then it gets buried, it's buried again. So, but the pipeline trail I'm talking about, rather than the pipe itself, the pipeline trail. Anyway, in this piece on the Globe and Mail, I did say I wasn't going to play any of it, but I might just play this little bit from Haley if I can find it. I know it's right at the end, because she said she did not plant the blanket. She was one of the ones who found the blanket. So there was Haley, who is Malaya's sister, Hayden, her brother, and then Hayden's girlfriend. They found the blanket. If I can find the little clip, we'll play.
Yep, at Patty Curry's. That's where I used to go visit. Okay.
Card updated. So she is a member of the First Nation, and she visited her grandmother and other relatives, and her grandmother asked her about her relationship with Daniel Martell.
I don't know, but I asked her, did he hurt you?
No, that's...
He was happy to talk.
Family when we showed up to help the search for
Lilly. Here we go.
To me or not.
The blanket was Lily's. Then Daniel suggested that the people who found the blanket planted it. So I spoke with Malaya's sister, Haley Ferdinand, who found the blanket, and she denies having planted anything.
We most certainly did not. And that's on everything I have, the person I am. I would not do that in the midst of to obstruct a case for missing children, regardless if they're related to me or not. I would never. So
why do you think Daniel is suggesting that you planted it? He told that to me as well.
Probably because I was the one that was hot on his ass the whole time we were there.
Okay.
And he didn't like me from the get-go when I got there, because he would not speak to any of Malaya's family when we showed up to help the search for Lilly and Jack. He'd put his head down. He would ignore us. He would walk away from us. He wouldn't engage in conversation, and I kept at him. I was there for Jack and Lilly, and I'm still here for Jack and Lilly.
Isn't Daniel just really bizarre? Like, is he really shy? Does he have like some kind of anxiety, and that's why he was behaving oddly? Or does he have something to hide? So it does feed into that. And it is Daniel that has been saying that that blanket was planted. That did come from Daniel, that the blanket was planted. So make of it all what you will. But yeah, a lot has come out. So I think it's going to take a little bit of digesting. And the dogs are not going to be out there this weekend. We don't know exactly when the searches are going to commence. But let's hope it's soon. And let's hope that they give these dogs a chance, like a really good chance of finding them. You know, they just need to be found right now. And whether the RCMP have got new leads or not, let's just hope that they are found. All right, guys, I've been on here for 2 hours. I've got to go and see what the puppy's doing downstairs. She's probably creating havoc. She's able to get out of her pen now, so I've got rid of the pen and she's loose in the front room. I've puppy-proofed it, but you never know, don't you? You never know what puppies can get into. And she's been very, very quiet for the last 2 hours. So, yeah, say no more. Say no more. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. And let's wait and see. That's all we can do, isn't it? Let's wait and see. So thank you once again to the Quiet Observer for gifting 5 memberships. And well done to Jack and Lilly for being a member for 40 whole months. All right. Thanks, as always, to the mods. And yeah, I'm out of here. I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.